up, fight fans? This is Johnny Stofko. Welcome to my channel. What you're about to watch is an interview I did with boxing prospect Phenom, 17-year-old Joseph Brown, and his father, Martin. Joseph fights out of Team Mayweather camp. At only 17 years old, he has a record of 3-0 with 3 knockouts. In the interview, you're gonna hear me mention and reference a documentary they did on Joseph called Manifest. If you wanna watch that in full, that link is in the description below. Also, please give Joseph a follow on all of his social media accounts. I'll leave those links in the description as well. Thank you. About how you, Martin, and your wife, Melissa, you guys had left from Florida, and you basically left with nothing, got your passport to go to Canada. And I was reading about that story, and it just made me think about the importance of adversity in relationship to having goals and becoming successful, because I think that might be a gift, going through that adversity.
Most definitely, I agree. You know, steel is forged in fire. Gold is made in fire. You know, it gets purified. So a lot of times, you know, test and trial come in life. And, you know, I'm old school, man. I'll be 56 in a few weeks. And
okay, the truth comes out.
Yeah. Back in the day, like, you didn't have all this softness that's going on. You had to be hardcore, man. You had to, you know, you fell out of a tree, you get up, you brush yourself off, you keep going. Like, people insulted you in school, you know, it was part of growing up. You know, you go back and forth with kids. Nowadays, any type of hardships kids go through, they're putting them on drugs, they're pampering everybody. It's like they're taking that God-given ability to fight your way through things out of us, making us all soft as a society, man. Can't deal with anything, can't take nothing. You know?
There was a specific moment in the documentary where, Martin, I think you guys might have been at Rain City, and you were talking Joseph through some rounds, and afterwards, the advice you had given him, your son, the coach had come up, unbeknownst to you, and gave Joseph the same advice. And then he leaves, and then you turn to Joseph and you say, you see, you know, I told you. It reminded me, because my father used to ride me a lot, man. Like, you know, hearing that feedback or that sort of conversation between father and son, coach and mentor, it's almost like, Joseph, from your perspective, is it one of these things is it because your father is your coach and you have other coaches and you're getting data from all others, is it difficult for you sometimes to trust your father 100% when it comes to the technicality of the sport?
Nah, I wouldn't say so. I probably trust him more than any other coach, to be honest. Not because his knowledge of boxing is more than everybody, but just because he knows me better than anybody else.
That's beautiful. When you guys were in Mexico, I had to rewatch the highlights of your last fight when you were on the undercard of, you know, Floyd Mayweather, which is like, Martin, in the doco, you were talking about his life's journey and his past athletic accomplishments. And I know you didn't want to do and say this would be like the top crowning moment, but I'm thinking in my head, I was like, he's fighting on Floyd's card. I mean, there's not many athletes who ever walk this earth to say they fought on Floyd's card, let alone with the Mayweather, you know, insignia. And in the corner, I kept hearing the advice of like, somebody kept saying, poke. All right, poke, go to the body. Your body work.
Stab. It was stab.
Your body work in that fight was amazing, Joseph. That's one of my favorite things about you as a fighter, is it so young, man, you invest in that body. And a lot of fighters in general don't do that. But Martin, that was you giving him the advice.
Yeah, I was telling him to stab to the body and then go up top. Especially for fighter, I had studied that fighter like a couple days before the fight. And I noticed he moved his head a lot coming in. Whenever you have a fighter that's moving their head a lot, don't try to hit their heads. Keep touching that body, stabbing that body, long jabs, long right hands. What's going to happen is they're going to stop moving their head, because now they're anticipating a jab or a straight right to the body. Once they stop moving their head, that's when you go back up top. Then you go back to the bottom, you go back up top, then you use a feint, and then they never know what's coming next.
Do you attest your awareness in the chaos to just your lifelong approach to this journey? You're exactly where you need to be. It's like you were put there in that position. What do you attest that comfortability at only 17 years old to?
Just a lot of drilling and a lot of practice with my dad. You know, since I started boxing, since he started teaching me, he's always taught me defense first, you know, to hit and not get hit. So that was my biggest attribute when I started, and still is all the way till now. So that's why I'm able to go in there with like anybody and be calm and comfortable, because I know that no matter what, I'm not gonna be getting hit that much. Like, my defense is sharp.
And you were a kickboxer first, right?
Yeah. Well, I think actually I started in boxing first,
that
but
amateur
it was all around like the same time.
It was around the same time, like within months of each other.
That amateur career that we hear of 60, is it 67-0? That's kickboxing, correct?
That's everything.
Oh, okay, so that's your martial arts combat sports record.
Yeah.
Okay, my question for you then is, that space is so different. The footwork is so different. The strike zone is so different. So I wanted to ask you, was there a transition or was there a learning curve for you when you would go from kickboxing to boxing in terms of range and where you felt safe in hitting and not getting hit?
Well, I feel like I always had a style that worked for everything, and then I also knew how to do what in certain disciplines, and not to do what in other disciplines, just because I grew up doing all of them at the same time. Like, for so long, I just learned how to do what when. But yeah, I say like mainly like just my style in general, it kind of just fit with everything.
And you're what, 6'2"?
Yeah.
Junior middleweight, 154?
Yeah.
So your physicality, your skill set, we all know how athletic you are. It's hard for me to pinpoint one specific asset of your skill set that I could say that's what, because you do everything so well. So when you're training for a fight, is there one thing that regarding your weaknesses that you focus on, or is it a collective approach of your training?
I think it's a pretty collective approach. Basics are everything. Good basics will take you all the way to the top if you actually master it. So, I always had that as a good foundation, making sure that my basics were like super solid. And then, I added other stuff onto that. And then now I'm more at a point where I just during camp, I just try and fix certain mistakes that I feel like I might be making, or just small little bad habits. Because when you get to a point where you're super, super good, or you're fighting somebody that like does everything well, you start to look for, okay, well, what do they not do well? So those things that I feel like other people would look at me and say, okay, what does Joseph not do well? Those are the type of things that I work on during camp.
Is there something that you personally, I mean, your life experience, like if we look at our total life, your father's in his 50s, I'm in my 40s, we have this timeline, the time we could remember our first memory in this conversation now. Your timeline, where you could pull from, that's why you're so impressive, and guys like myself want to talk to you. Your timeline, you don't have a lot of it to pull from. So in your head, is there even a mental approach to where you go to work tomorrow and you say, I'm going to work on this? Or because it's always easier to work on things we're good at. You know what I'm saying? Like if I'm doing MMA, I want to just strike. I don't want to grapple. I don't want to wrestle if I'm a striker. So when you're hitting the gym, what I'm trying to ask you is, what could we see as fans that they will see you get better at with each fight?
Honestly, everything. Like, I'm still, 17, almost 18. I have room to improve on everything. Even my strongest areas aren't as good as what they're going to be a year from now or 5 years from now. I have so much, I can improve on everything just because I'm so young. So, in the future, I'm going to be better at like everything that I do.
Martin, that story you told about the 10-year story, man, and this is why I'm putting the documentary in the description. I'm going to talk the story you said when he was a kid and you had that vision and you talked about, and correct, I'm probably going to butcher this. I only saw it once. And you talked about having a vision of how, was it Jeff was going to hit you up? He was going to train with Mayweather. And
yeah, when he was 7, I had like a vision or a dream. I can't remember which one, that at 17 he was signed with Floyd. When he was 10, I literally had a dream that Jeff Mayweather was his coach, and both have happened.
Now, Joseph, on that note, have you thought about your life at 27? Have you thought about what that feels like, what that ring walk feels like, what that press conference feels like?
You know what? Not just like a little bit, just a little bit. I'm more focused on just working on getting there, to be honest, because I can think of, what life's going to be like at that time. But at the end of the day, if I don't get through life right now, if I start slipping and slacking up right now, I'm never going to get there. So I just focus on doing what I need to do right now in order to get there.
Yeah. So you guys, you've had 3 I think I got October 2023, March 2024, August 2024. 3 pro fights in less than a calendar year. Why didn't there was an interview you gave when you were super young, you wanted to be an Olympian. Why did you choose to go pro instead of stay with that amateur route?
Because they had changed the age limit. Like it was originally you were able to go at 17, but then they changed it to 19. And I'm still 17 right now, so I wouldn't have been able to go. So that's why I decided to make the transition to pro early.
What was Colombia like going to and fighting there?
It was super nice. Colombia is a beautiful country, and it was super cool to get my first pro fight there. It was an amazing experience.
Do you speak Spanish?
No, he does.
¿Cómo te llamo?
Poquito.
I mean, your approach on coaching your son about, taking him to Rain City, taking him to, I wrote it down, Quinnet boxing, and you have Mayweather in Vegas, and you're like, if I take my son to a gym and there's a coach that gives him something that we might not like, I'll keep a little bit and I'll move on. That's a very samurai way to look at things. When you look at, there's a book called The Book of Five Rings. And it's an old school book, 15th century samurai, written by a sword fighter. And he talked about that, taking things and then not being afraid to let go of things. Where'd you pick that up at, Martin?
I started in the 70s, man, in a Japanese style of martial arts by the name of Seido. And from there, I went on into Nishigo Juru. From there, I branched off into Taekwondo, kickboxing, and then some boxing as well. My philosophy really comes from Bruce Lee. I was a big Bruce Lee fan. When I was a kid, like 11, 12, 13, I had all of Bruce Lee's books. I used to read it like the Bible, man, just always going through his training methods, his fighting methods, and I just got that philosophy in me. And Bruce Lee's philosophy was that, he would take the best of each art that worked for him, and then he'd disregard what didn't work for him. So honestly, what might work for me might not work for you. So you might grab something, let's say from Muay Thai, that works for you. It might not work for me, but I might find something in Muay Thai that works for me that might not work for you. So I would grab a little from here and a little from here to make a style that works best for myself. So that was always my philosophy, growing up, and I just projected that, into Joseph.
Joseph, is it a collective conversation with your father and you when you go to these gyms? And I'd like the people are going to be watching this, a lot of boxing fans, the mindset that goes into the preservation of an investment, because that, you're your father's son. You're the life's work of many years of focus and discipline. There's a town who's cheering for you, right? The guy from Rain City said that, young kids are going to watch you fight and they're going to grow up and want to be like, you in Canada, which is fascinating, man. It's pretty wild. But is there a conversation that happens when you go to kind of like a new gym, or you're trying to pick sparring partners out, and and you might feel you could take this dude, or like your dad might feel he's too old? Like, talk about that and kind of explain to people who might not be in the know how that works regarding who Joseph gets in the ring with, how hard they go. Because a lot of fans, they see those old school videos of Floyd's old gym. Is that, correct me if I'm wrong, the sparring videos was the doghouse, and I think a lot of people sometimes get a misinterpretation that that's how all smokers are, that's how all up and coming boxers, they got to go through that. What's that like, trying to choose accurate sparring partners for Joseph to get him to the next level?
Well, I always try and get in there with people that are better than me, which is, it's hard to find because it's not very.
We knew you would say that, but so do you ever argue with your pops when he tries to pull you back?
I mean, nah, because naturally, I'm not one of those people that go all out in sparring. Like, I like to take my time and just work on certain things. It is kind of hard now because you get to a point sometimes where once you start getting a name for yourself, everybody wants to come in and try and prove something. So at that point, then it's like, yeah, I got to go in and just do what I got to do. But in general, I'm not one of those people that go into a sparring session and try and take your head off. Like, I'm just trying to work on what I do. Because at the end of the day, sparring is, it's actually a lot. That's something that I learned after my 3 pro fights, that sparring is way different than an actual fight. It's the closest thing you'll get to a fight, but it's still way different.
So that kid you were 13 months ago versus you're a man now. I mean, you're in there. People die in the ring. It's a serious thing. And, I never want to undersell that. What advice would you give 16-year-old Joseph Brown based off of that 3-fight experience you have right now? Is there any advice you could turn to that young man and say?
Keep investing into the body more than I'm doing now. And, keep him on the outside as much as possible. You
Nice.
Take less punishment like that.
Excellent. You had me going, man, with the beginning of that doco with you're telling your story with the berries, and I'm like, he has a nutritionist. I was like, this dude's 17 years old. And then you were like, his name's Joseph Brown. He's been cooking for himself this whole time. I thought that was cool, man. You need show more of that side of you, man, because I think a lot of people don't get to see that in boxing. What's your relationship with Raleigh, man? Because I met your father through a boxing group I run, and it turned out it started as a passion project. Now it's turning into my 3rd book, and I put up a post about prospects to watch, and that's how I first heard of you. People kept saying on the initial post, I don't think you were on the initial post, and a lot of people were like tagging your dad, saying your name, and I did my research, and I ended up finding a connection with you and Raleigh, and then fast forward a year, I see you walk Raleigh out, and I get people talk crap to me because Raleigh. Put it this way, mate. Raleigh's one of my favorite fighters to watch, and the reason why he's one of my favorite fighters to watch is because he's not the most athletic, which I never was. He's not the most skilled, but that kid deep down, his authenticity, his heart, his spirit, he is a fighter, and he's throwing it straight down the middle, no matter what. And for fans not to get that, man. And when I saw you walking him out, it was one of the questions I wanted to ask you. What's your relationship with Raleigh, and how did that start?
My relationship with Rolly's super close. I'm actually wearing a Rolly shirt right now. We met in Floyd's gym. Like, he just saw me training, and then a few days after seeing me training, he just sat me down one day. Me and him sat in the gym together, and we started. He started giving me a bunch of advice, just life advice and advice of boxing. Like, we're sitting down for I'd say a good couple hours. Like, him just talking to me, giving me advice, and ever since that day, it's like a year and something ago, we've just been super close with each other. And yeah, I've been to both of his last fights, walking him out. We're super close. He's like a brother to me. He gives me just so much different advice in and outside of boxing. He's super, super intelligent, which not many people know of. They just kind of think of the character that he has on TV and stuff, but he's actually one of the smartest guys you'll meet, to be honest, especially in boxing.
When it comes to the sleep, the recovery, you talked about macros. Most people don't know about, fats, carbs, and proteins, which seem pretty basic to someone who knows about them. But is this something that on the down low you're really into? HRV, looking at your rest and recovery, counting your calories and all that stuff?
Yeah, I've actually been doing it for a while. It's good to have knowledge of it as a fighter because, you can kind of, guide your own type of, pathway for yourself and not always have to have people do it for you. And of course, I still have help from other people helping me, but it's still good to have that type of knowledge myself.
These are fighters I'm going to name probably 4 or 5. They don't have fights coming up. From your perspective as a fighter and as a fan, who would you want to see Tank fight next?
I like to see Tank fight probably maybe Devin. I like seeing him and Devin.
Nice. Okay. Who would you like to see Liam Perro fight next?
Honestly, Devin too. Either Devin or Rolly.
Nice. How about Terrence Crawford?
Terrence Crawford. I probably one of the Charlos, maybe the small one.
Shakur
and Tank.
You said Raleigh and Tank?
Yeah, I could see a rematch with them. A rematch with them would be good. I like to also see Rolly fight Devin.
Yeah.
To wrap everything up, I'm gonna ask your dad and yourself the same question, but I'll ask you first, Joseph. If your 3 best friends were sitting in a room and you weren't there, what would they say about you?
They say I'm a great boxer. I'm hardworking and I'm dedicated to my sport.
And Martin, if your son wasn't in the room, what would you say about him?
What would I say about my son?
If he wasn't in the room?
Very humble, dedicated, and passionate about what he's doing.
That's beautiful. All right, guys, to get out of here, do we have any fight news? You know, give us your social medias. I'm putting that documentary in the description, and anything else you want to add before we get going.
You know, I should be back in the ring in November. We're just trying to secure a date, but I should be back then. And you know, if you want to follow me, all my socials are Real Joseph Brown.
I'll put all that in the description. And guys, thank you for doing this.